let's pray for Kitty as she gets ready to celebrate her 99th year. God, every year of our lives, every moment is in your hands. So look with continued favor on Kitty as she begins her 99th year. Grant that she would continue to grow in wisdom and grace, and above all, strengthen her trust in your goodness and love all the days of her life. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you. Okay, and now without further ado, you've got a bio on the back of your program for Ronn and Carolyn. I can safely say this is the best flute concert you're ever going to hear. Even if you've been to Ronn before, because he's practiced some more since then. So Ronn is absolutely amazing, and we're going to enjoy his gifts, not only of the lute, but also Ronn does a fantastic job explaining a little bit about what he's doing. Carolyn's lute is here, and she's playing the viola, so super excited. And let's welcome Ronn and Carolyn up to the top. And I did want to mention, following the show, I'll have CDs at the front desk where the tickets were. So at the end, if you're interested in the CD, they're $15, and that just goes to Ronn and Carolyn.
I'll just say a word about this first piece because it was put together for viola da gamba and lute with Carolyn and me during the pandemic. We really started our duo during the spring of 2020 and kept practicing together all the way through. She was the only musician I got to see for close to a year there. And this first piece, Fermi's Paradox, refers to Enrico Fermi. You may know him. He was a physicist, an Italian physicist living in the United States in the middle of the 20th century. And his paradox was the overwhelming likelihood, according to scientists, the likelihood of intelligent civilizations on other planets, other solar systems, perhaps other galaxies, but the complete absence of proof or evidence of their existence. So Fermi asks, where is everybody? And during the pandemic, when we were just sort of hunkered down, waiting for things to pass, we kind of wondered the same thing. Where is everybody? So I hope you enjoy this Fermi's Paradox. This next piece, O Sacred Head, is a hymn written around 1600 by Hans Leo Hassler. But more than 100 years later, J.S. Bach loved the tune well enough that he wrote a great harmonization and a terrific bass line to it. So he kind of reinvented the piece. But then, well over 100 years after that, in 1973, Paul Simon took the tune and wrote new words to it, called it by the title American Tune, and released it on his album called There Goes Ryman Simon. So it's a tune that just won't quit. It's a tune that's been played and replayed and reinvented again and again, which really happens with some of the best tunes. They have a kind of Darwinian strength that generation after generation, they're so good that you just want to play them. So here is our version that owes perhaps a little more to Hassler and J.S. Bach than it owes to Paul Simon.
And I would like to note that we flew in from Maryland yesterday, and your weather is really different. So my instrument is very sensitive to temperature and humidity changes, and yeah, so once and it's different outside than inside. There are all sorts of things that are different here, but once I get in tune, which I am at this very moment, if you guys would just stop breathing, it'll really work better for me. So while he's tuning, I'll tell you a little about my instrument, which is the viola da gamba, which in Italian means the viola of the leg. The violin family is what everyone's familiar with. They have 4 strings. You hold most of them on your arm, called the viola da braccia, the violin's arm. They're bowed like this. They have 4 strings. They're tuned in fifths. This instrument has 7 strings. It has frets, like a guitar has frets, but my frets are movable. Instead of being bowed overhand, it's bowed underhand. It doesn't have an end pin, so I just have to cradle it between my legs. It has a flat back, like a guitar has a flat back. It's tuned in fourths with a third, like a guitar is tuned, and otherwise it's exactly like a cello. Oh, it's me. It's me. Okay.
you. Thank you. So, back in the old days, I mean the really old days, like 500 years ago or so, there was a little controversy among the lute players about whether you should pluck the strings with your fingernails or touch them with your bare fingers, because it makes a difference in the sound. And one writer had a definite opinion. He wrote, "Only the living flesh, not the dead fingernail, can impart the living spirit of the music into the souls, into the ears of the listeners, uplifting them." But the composer of this next piece, Alessandro Piccinini, whose name is really fun to say, you should try that, he thought you should grow your nails out to the ends of your fingers and pluck very close to the bridge. And in fact, he thought it was a good idea to replace the usual gut strings with metal strings, which he said creates a sweet metallic sound, which I don't have nails really, but it'd be kind of like this. I can't do that. At any rate, I have neither the nails nor the metal strings to give you the full Piccinini experience. But I think you'll hear in this piece, there's a lot of variety of sound. As they said back in the old days, the lute could make sounds that were bitter, sounds that were sweet, some that were soft, and some that were hard. And that's really a big part of lute playing back in the old days, is to try to make it like a kind of speech or singing.
That piece was by the other Piccinini, Duane Allman. The next pieces we're going to do are, there are three movements of a sonata by Telemann written for the viola da gamba. And generally in the Baroque, sonatas had four movements and they were titled by the tempo. So it would be allegro, adagio, or andante, or something that implies what the tempo of the piece should be. For this particular sonata, Telemann gave the movements names from opera. So the first movement is cantabile, and the second one is recitativo, and the third one is arioso. It is infrequent that in the Baroque viola da gamba players were asked to be extraordinarily dramatic. But I take this as like license to do that, because you can't possibly do a recitative without like really emoting. And it's extremely fun to play these pieces. It's extremely fun to also play them with Ron because he's so extraordinary. So these are the three movements from Telemann's sonata in E minor. Sorry. That's sort of the least important part of it to me. It's the names that matter. right? Like, how cool is that? So the next, Ron's going to tell you all about the musicology part of the next piece of music, but it's an Ave Maria, and I work in Baltimore in a church Monday through Friday, and I sometimes drive up Greenmont Avenue, which is on the east side of town, and I'm driving up at 7:30, 7:40 in the morning, and I pass the school, Catholic school that's got like guards at the door, and then I get close to 24th Street, and there's an empty lot, and there's a drug dealer in there by 7:30 in the morning on Monday through Friday, not quite so early on Sundays, and he's doing his drug deals, and then you go further up, and there's a liquor store on the corner that's got 8 or 10 folks hanging out at 7:45 in the morning, and I think we all need a prayer. Like, life can be hard, and I think that finding a place that we can find grace is one of the great gifts of life and one of the great gifts of music, and for me, this next piece is all about that. Now he'll tell you why it exists, if you want.
We could take a break from musicology.
Okay. No musicology.
I think J.S. Bach knew he had a good tune when he wrote this one because he wrote it 3 times. He wrote it once for solo violin, once for solo lute, and then also arranged it for orchestra. Same piece. So we're going to play the orchestra version for you. This is, the orchestra version has an organ part that's almost identical to the lute solo part. So I'll be playing that. But then he also adds to that first violin, second violin, violas, cello, then bass doubling the cello at the octave. You have 3 trumpets, 2 oboes, and timpani. And Carolyn will be doing that part.
Measure 8 says trumpet. better check.
So among lute nerds like me, John Dowland is just about the ultimate lute composer. Now, maybe not for regular people, but the lute nerds just go crazy for John Dowland. So, turns out John Dowland wrote one and only one piece for one lute and one viola da gamba. So, we got to play it. So we have a couple of traditional Irish and Northern English pieces next. First off, She Moved Through the Fair, a great old Irish tune. We don't know for sure how old it is. It just was passed down in the oral tradition, and we don't really know for sure when it was first imagined. But we know a little more about John Barleycorn, which turns up in the 16th century in just the words, without a tune, but then the tune and the words are published in the 17th century. But I came to know the piece when I was about 16 years old. In 1970, I was a big fan of a group called Traffic, and their singer, Steve Winwood, sang this song on their album called John Barleycorn Must Die. So that's about 1970. Now, it took me decades before I realized that they didn't compose the piece themselves, but I discovered that it was a piece that actually goes back all the way to the 17th, maybe even the 16th century. So it's kind of a double pleasure in that we're playing music fit for these instruments, when the viola da gamba and lute were the most prized instruments, the most heard and loved instruments of all. And at the same time, we get to feel like we're covering a rock and roll song.
Life is good.
So we have one last tune called W. Lee's, and I think it might be reversed on your program, the last two. So W. Lee's is the last tune on the regularly scheduled program. This is a tune for my dad. Has some elements of Celtic music, a little Scotch-Irish feel, and also some Appalachian feel. And also something else that I can't quite identify, which is exactly my dad. It's called W. Lee.